Okay, so you send us this YouTube transcript to
Mm-hmm.
take a look at, and it's from Sain.
Right.
And the title of this video is Tomorrow's Shocking News Will Rock the Stock Market. 4.
Yeah, those emojis, I think they give you a sense of maybe what we're going to be talking about today.
A little bit, a little bit.
But yeah, we wanted to kind of go through this, see
Yeah.
what Chris is talking about in this video.
Exactly. So we're going to be looking at really his analysis of the SPY.
Yep.
Which is the ETF that tracks the S&P 500.
Yep.
So it's really kind of the overall market
Exactly.
that he's looking at.
Yeah, it's a good benchmark.
Yeah, and basically trying to glean from this video, what is he seeing in the market right now?
Right.
And maybe what are some of the trading opportunities that he's pointing to?
Yeah, exactly. So kind of like, how is he reading the market right now?
Exactly.
Based on what happened yesterday.
Yeah.
And what he thinks might happen tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think that, when you look at this kind of content on YouTube, a lot of times they were very short-term focused.
Yes. Very short term.
So I think that's another thing to keep in mind as we're going through this analysis.
Very much so. Very much so.
All right, so he starts off the video with kind of the standard YouTube stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, welcome to the channel.
Yeah, make sure you subscribe, all that good stuff.
Hit that notification bell.
Yeah. I got to get those likes.
You got to get those subs.
Yeah, okay.
But then he kind of sets the stage by talking about, we're basically in a stock market crash right now.
Yeah, it's a pretty stark way to...
That's what he says.
To start the video, to set the scene.
It definitely gets your attention.
Right.
So he's kind of setting the stage with that sort of backdrop.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely kind of frames the analysis like, okay, we're in a crash.
Right.
How are we going to navigate this situation?
Exactly. And he goes on to say, there's ways to make money in this market. And that's kind of what he's going to be talking about in this video.
Yep. Okay.
So we've got the stage set.
Right.
We're in a stock market crash, according to Chris.
Right.
Now, where do we go from here?
Exactly. So how do we actually use this information?
Yeah. So he jumps into the charts, and he's looking at the SPY.
Yeah.
And the time frame he's looking at is the 15-minute time frame.
Okay, so very short term.
Very short term.
Intraday, in fact.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's looking at the previous day's price action.
Got it.
And so the key level that he keeps coming back to is this price of 564.
Okay.
And initially, he's got that marked as a resistance level.
Okay, so that's a level where the price has had trouble breaking above in the past.
Exactly. Yeah, and he makes it very clear that, for this price to really move higher, we needed to see a break above that level.
Right.
And he actually points to a specific candle on the chart.
Oh, really?
Where he says, this is where we broke through.
Okay.
And he calls it a power bar.
A power bar.
And specifically, it was a green power bar.
Okay, so a big green candle showing strong buying.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, so
pushing through that resistance.
That's where we finally saw that price break above that 564 level.
Interesting.
So let's talk about that idea of resistance for a second.
Sure.
For folks who might not be as familiar with trading, what does that actually mean?
Yeah, so resistance is basically a price level where the stock or the ETF, whatever we're looking at, has had trouble moving higher in the past.
Right.
So it's kind of like a ceiling.
Yeah.
And it usually means that there are a lot of sellers at that level.
Yeah, they're kind of waiting there to sell.
Exactly. They're like, oh, I'm going to sell when it gets up to 564.
Right.
And that's what creates that resistance. It's kind of like a battle between the buyers and the sellers.
Yeah. And
in this case, the buyers were strong enough to push through that resistance with that power bar.
That green power bar, exactly.
Yeah, which is interesting to see. And it would be interesting to see the volume on that, too.
Yeah, definitely. Because volume can tell us a lot about the conviction behind that move.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how much buying pressure was there, really?
Exactly. Was it just a few people buying, or was it a whole lot of people?
Right, because that can give you a sense of, how sustainable that move might be.
Absolutely. Yeah, if it was just a few people, then maybe it's not going to last.
Right.
But if it was a lot of people, then maybe there's more fuel to that fire.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've broken through that 564 resistance. Now what happens?
Yes. What's the next step?
So he brings up this concept of a break and retest.
Okay, I've heard that before.
Yeah, he also refers to it as a bump and run.
Oh, okay.
So basically what he's saying is after the price broke above 564, it then pulled back down
Okay.
to that same level.
All right.
And this is where it gets really interesting.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
He's saying that this former resistance level now becomes a new support level.
Oh, that's interesting. So it kind of flips.
It flips.
Yeah.
So why does that happen?
Well, it has to do with the psychology of the market.
Okay.
So think about it. All those sellers who were sitting up at 564, they've now been kind of proven wrong.
Right.
Because the price broke through.
Yeah.
So they might be thinking, oh, man, maybe I should have bought instead of selling.
Right.
Or they might need to buy back the shares that they sold.
To cover their shorts.
Exactly, to cover their shorts. And that buying pressure can create support at that level.
Interesting.
Because now you've got buyers stepping in where there were sellers before.
I see. So it's kind of like that level has now been validated.
Exactly. It's like the market is saying, okay, this level is important.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more likely to hold as support now.
Yeah. Okay, so the price bounces off this new 564 support level.
Right.
And then Chris identifies a new target price range.
Okay.
Which is 569 to 570.
All right. Okay.
So he's calling this the next level.
Okay.
And he suggests that this is an area where traders might look to take profits.
Gotcha. So he's expecting the price to move up to that range.
Exactly. Yeah. And at the time of the video, he said the current price was around 567.
Okay.
So he's anticipating a further move upwards
Yeah, it makes
to
sense.
that 569, 570 range.
So basically, he's looking for that break and retest to play out again,
Exactly.
but at a higher level.
Right. So we've gone up, we've pulled back,
Yeah.
we've bounced off that support.
Yeah.
Now we're looking for another move up
Got it.
to that next resistance level.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so then he goes on to lay out potential trading strategy.
Okay. Yeah. Let's hear
Based on these levels, so he says, look for a possible pullback
it. Mm-hmm.
back down to that new support zone of 564.
Okay.
And he even gives a little bit of a buffer down to 560.
All right. So a little bit of wiggle room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he sees this pullback as a potential buy zone or area of entry.
Okay. So that's where he would be looking to enter a trade
Exactly.
if the price pulls back to that level.
And he also mentions putting a stop loss order
Mm-hmm.
below that support level
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
manage risk.
Yeah. Always important to have a stop loss.
Absolutely.
So you don't lose too much money if the trade goes against you.
Exactly. And of course, the goal here is to capture that move
Mm-hmm.
up to that 569, 570 resistance.
Got it.
So what do you think about this kind of strategy?
Well, it's a pretty classic support and resistance play.
Mm-hmm.
You're basically buying at a level where you think there's going to be buying support,
Yeah.
and you're selling at a level where you think there's going to be selling pressure,
Right.
and you're using a stop loss to protect yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a logical approach.
It makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's all based on the assumption that that 564 level is going to hold as support.
Right. And he seems pretty confident in that.
Yeah, he does seem pretty confident.
But I guess the question is, what could happen that would invalidate that?
Yeah, what if that support level breaks?
Exactly. And how would you even know that that's happening?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I mean, he doesn't really address that in the video.
Right.
Does he?
No, not really.
So that's something to keep in mind.
Definitely something to think about.
Like, how do you actually know
Mm-hmm.
when a support level is breaking?
Yeah, because that can happen.
Yeah, that could be really dangerous.
Yeah, you could lose a lot of money if you're not careful.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's important to have some kind of plan
Right.
for how you're going to manage that risk.
Yeah, like what are the signs that you're looking for
Exactly.
to say, okay, this is not working.
This trade is not working. I need to get out.
You need to get out now.
Yeah.
Okay. So he uses this analogy
Mm-hmm.
when he's talking about that 570 level.
Okay.
He says, there are bears waiting at that level.
Oh, that's a good analogy.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, you've got the bulls pushing the price up,
Mm-hmm.
and then you've got the bears
Waiting to pounce.
waiting at that 570 level
Yeah.
to sell.
To sell and drive the price back down.
Exactly. So it's kind of like a tug of war
Right.
between the buyers and the sellers.
Yeah. It's a good way to visualize it.
Yeah, and he's basically saying that, that 570 level is going to be tough to break through
Mm-hmm.
because there's going to be a lot of selling pressure there.
Yeah. And probably a lot of people taking profits.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Because if you bought down at 564
Yeah.
and you see the price moving up towards 570,
You're going to be thinking about selling.
you're going to be thinking about taking your profits.
Exactly.
So that's why he's identifying that as a potential area of resistance.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so he talks about the importance of patience.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, wait for those pullbacks
Right.
to get better entry points.
Yeah. Buy low, sell high.
Right. And he says, by buying lower,
Mm-hmm.
you can actually make more profit.
Yeah, because you're getting in at a better price
Right.
and you have more room to run.
Exactly. And he even uses this phrase. He says, don't get trick-trapped and frustrated.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that before.
So what do you think he means by that?
I think he's talking about those times when the price makes a little fake move.
Mm-hmm.
Like it might go up a little bit.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, this is it. This is the breakout.
This is the big move.
Yeah, and you jump in.
You buy in.
And then it immediately reverses.
And you're trapped.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, no, I've been tricked.
Right.
And that can be really frustrating.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you missed out.
Right.
Or you made a bad decision.
So he's saying, be patient.
Right.
Wait for those pullbacks.
Wait for confirmation.
Don't just chase the price.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so he also mentions his Discord community.
Oh, yeah, he does that a lot.
Yeah, he says, if you want real-time guidance on trading the SPY and Tesla.
Oh, it mentioned Tesla.
Yeah, he briefly talks about Tesla.
Okay.
Come join my Discord.
Makes sense.
It's kind of a way to promote his community.
Yeah, and a lot of these YouTubers have these communities now.
It's very common.
Yeah, it's a way to connect with their followers and offer more exclusive content.
Yeah, and maybe charge for it.
Yeah, maybe make some extra money.
So what did he say about Tesla?
Oh, he just briefly mentioned that it had a down move in the morning and then an up move in the afternoon.
Okay.
But it failed to break above 240.
Okay.
So that's another key level to watch.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about how the market moves in cycles.
Oh, right. So even within a day.
Yeah, even within a day.
You can have these cycles.
Up cycles and down cycles.
Right. So it's not always just a straight line up or down.
Exactly. It's more like a wave.
Yeah.
With peaks and valleys.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so then he wraps up the video
Mm-hmm.
with, the usual, subscribe.
Yeah, you got to get those subs.
All that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's try to summarize
Okay.
what we've learned from this video.
All right.
So basically, Chris is analyzing the SPY,
Mm-hmm.
and he's identified this key level of 5, 6, and 4,
Right.
which initially acted as resistance.
Yeah.
But then after we broke through that level, it flipped to become support.
Right. That a break and retest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And based on that, he's anticipating a move up to that 569, 570 range.
Right, which he sees as the next resistance level.
Exactly. And his trading strategy is basically to buy on a pullback
Yep.
to that 564, 560 support zone.
With a stop loss below.
With a stop loss below.
And a target of 569 to 570.
Exactly.
So pretty straightforward.
Yeah, and throughout the video, he's really stressing the importance of patience.
Right.
Waiting for those pullbacks.
Don't get trip-trapped.
Don't get trick-trapped.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, that's a good summary.
I'm curious, he keeps talking about that 569, 570 as the next level.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think would determine whether the price actually stops there?
Right.
Or if it keeps going higher?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean, is there any way to know?
Well, there are a few things you can look at.
Okay.
One is the overall market sentiment.
Mm-hmm.
So if the market is generally bullish, meaning people are feeling optimistic,
Right.
then it's more likely that the price will break through that resistance.
Okay.
But if the market is bearish,
Mm-hmm.
meaning people are feeling pessimistic,
Right.
then it's more likely that the price will stall at that resistance.
Interesting.
Another thing you can look at is the volume.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see a lot of volume
Yeah.
coming in as the price approaches that resistance level,
Okay.
that could be a sign that there's a lot of buying pressure
Right.
and that the price might break through.
Yeah, because it's like all those buyers are coming in.
Exactly. They're all piling
Trying to
in.
push the price higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then, of course, you always have to watch out for news events
Mm-hmm.
because those can really move the market. So if
Yeah.
there's some big news that comes out,
Right.
that could either push the price higher or lower.
Right. It could completely change the picture.
Exactly.
Okay, so it sounds like there's not really a definitive answer.
Right.
It's more about looking at multiple factors.
Yeah, it's about weighing the evidence
Yeah.
and trying to make the best decision you can.
And I guess also being prepared
Mm-hmm.
for the possibility that the price could go either way.
Exactly, because the market is always unpredictable.
That is very true.
Yeah, so you always have to be prepared for anything.
And I think it's also interesting that he was looking at the 15-minute time frame.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you looked at a different time frame,
Right?
like a daily chart or a weekly chart,
Yeah.
if you might see a different picture.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because different time frames can tell you different stories. So the
Right.
15-minute time frame is really good for short-term trading.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're looking for longer-term trends,
Yeah.
you might want to look at a daily or weekly chart.
Okay, so it's kind of like zooming out
Exactly.
to get a bigger picture.
Yeah, and seeing the forest for the trees.
I like that.
Yeah.
So for our listeners out there,
Mm-hmm.
as you're following along with this analysis, think about how these concepts of support and resistance apply to the assets that you're watching.
Yeah.
Can you identify those
Yeah,
levels
I
on the
spot it.
charts?
Yeah. Can you see where the price has bounced off support or
Right.
stalled at resistance?
Exactly. And maybe even see if you can spot those break and retests.
Yeah, those are really powerful signals.
Yeah.
If you can identify them.
And don't forget about those different time frames.
Right.
Look at different time frames
Yeah.
to get a more well-rounded perspective.
Exactly. Because it's all about perspective.
Yeah. And I think that's a good reminder that, while technical analysis can be a really useful tool,
Yeah.
it's not the only tool.
Right.
And it's important to use other tools as well
Yeah, exactly.
to confirm your decision.
And to manage your risk.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive
It has been.
into Chris Sain's analysis.
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Me too.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.